Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 9 for Journal Club. This is kind of a continuation of last week. I will also be presenting on nutrition during childhood and adolescence. I would also like to add a disclaimer that I apologize in advance if you can hear my dog making noise in the background. I am trying to keep him quiet, but it's not working out so great. Anyways, let's move forward with our journal discussion for this week. So, the article that I picked for the journal discussion this week is entitled Comparison of Preseason and In-Season Hydration Levels in High School Wrestlers. And as someone who has a background in athletics and fitness, I was really intrigued to bring a physical activity component into nutrition. So that's primarily why I chose this article. Additionally, I have a younger brother who was a wrestler from the time he was in 6th grade until he graduated from high school. And I think that the nutrition education that those kids receive can be lacking and can be very dangerous and lead to long term consequences. So I wanted to explore what the literature said about that a little bit more through this project. A little bit of background. I know of several states, including Missouri, which is where this study was conducted, as well as Georgia, which is where I grew up, have high school athletic associations that require wrestlers to pass a certification exam before they are eligible to compete each season. I cannot speak to other states, but I would assume that they have similar guidelines. But the certification process consists of a hydration analysis and a body composition assessment, which are then used to establish a minimum wrestling weight. And the hydration level is determined by a refractometry and requires the wrestler to have a urine specific gravity of less than or equal to 1.025 grams per cubic centimeter in order to be allowed to compete. However, if the wrestler is found to be above this threshold, then he's not allowed to continue with the certification process that day and must wait at least 48 hours before returning to retest. If he does meet the hydration standard, then he's measured for 3 skin folds by a state certified technician in order to estimate his current body fat percentage and establish a minimum wrestling weight. And the minimum percent fat has been set at 7% and is used to determine the amount of weight the athlete can lose in order to reach the minimum wrestling weight and to determine what weight class he will compete in. This exam has been used in an attempt to eliminate the practice of cutting that is commonly employed by many wrestlers to lose weight quickly, and these cutting methods can range from food restriction to dehydration to exercising in hot environments or wearing multiple layers of clothing. One of the most common methods of this weight cutting is dehydration, and it's commonly used because it's a quick way to achieve significant weight loss. However, it's dangerous because the literature indicates that as little as 2% loss in body water will have a negative impact on exercise performance. And a key thing I wanted to point out is the difference between dehydration and hypohydration. Dehydration is the process of losing body water, and hypohydration is the state of being dehydrated. So the purpose of this study was to evaluate the difference between preseason and in-season hydration and body composition of high school wrestlers. The study population was a team of 21 male wrestlers at a Missouri high school, and the preseason assessment was done after a regular school day in late October. And upon entering the locker room, each subject provided a urine sample, and if it was found that that subject had met the threshold for adequate hydration, then he was allowed to continue with the certification process. He was weighed on a digital scale, only wearing shorts, and then his body composition assessment was done using skin fold measurements at the right side of his body at the triceps, subscapular, and abdominal. The mid-season evaluation was done in late November without prior notice to the athletes, and it was conducted in the exact same manner as the preseason assessment, and then the results of the two dates were compared. And so the results were, at the start of the season, all of the wrestlers had met the requirements to be eligible to complete, and it was determined that they were adequately hydrated. However, at the mid-season measurement date, it was found that 17 out of the 21 wrestlers were above the threshold, meaning that they were not adequately hydrated. All subjects by the mid-season point had lost significant body weight, and this appeared to be due almost entirely to a decrease in fat mass. And those who were found to be below the standard, so it was assumed that they were adequately hydrated, had gained more lean body mass than those who were above the threshold, which again indicates that they were not adequately hydrated. So on to my evaluation of the study. I'll start with the strengths. I really like that it gave a detailed explanation on the importance of adequate hydration within the context of athletics. I like that the mid-season evaluation was done without prior notice to the athletes. I think had the athletes been given notice, the results would have been very different. And it also showed the need for further research for proper hydration in high school athletes, particularly in wrestlers. The study mentioned some findings that have been seen in collegiate athletes, but I think that there is a gap in the literature concerning high school wrestlers. Some weaknesses, there were some ideas that they presented for overcoming behavioral barriers to hydration, but I don't think they're the most realistic. I think the bioelectrical impedance assessment would work. But I don't know how willing the coaches would be to take the time to do that. Additionally, it said just pushing water on the athletes for hydration has been shown to be effective, and I think that is very effective, but I don't think that could come from the coaches, simply because coaches are likely to be kind of the ones that are teaching these wrestlers, this is how you cut weight. I think that's where the problem starts, is the wrestlers teaching these kids weight cutting strategies. So I think to minimize that, you would have to start with coach education first. Because I know, at least when I was in high school, even my basketball coach would tell us, you're only allowed one water break per practice. And I never saw the guys come out of their wrestling room at our gym. And there was no water fountain in there. So I don't think the coaches were pushing water on them. So I think that that would have to start with the coaches first. Additionally, this study had a small sample size, as I'm sure you noticed, only 21 athletes. So I think in order to really determine if these findings were generalizable, I think you would have to take it to a larger sample size. For my discussion questions, do you think that high schools should be required to have a nutritionist on staff if that high school has a wrestling program? Or do you think it would be more productive and beneficial to require coaches to have nutritional training? Why are I not to either of those first two questions? Or what other ideas do you have for promoting hydration in high school wrestlers?